Welcome to Answering the Call, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. Our show brings you closer to the heart of Texas A&M athletics through powerful stories of perseverance, purpose, and life-changing opportunities made possible by 12th Man Foundation donors. From student athletes and coaches to former students and dedicated staff, you'll hear firsthand how donor support shapes the lives of Aggie student athletes in competition and beyond. Whether you're a lifelong Aggie or simply curious about what makes Texas A&M so special, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's episode. Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of Answering the Call, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. This is your host, Ivy Robinson, and today I'm in studio with Texas A&M Baseball Assistant Coach Cliff Pennington. Thank you so much for joining us, Cliff.
Thanks for having me.
You know, you were an Aggie Baseball student athlete yourself from 2003 to 2005. What's it like being back in Aggieland now as an assistant coach helping lead this program? I'm sure it's a, full circle moment for you.
Yeah, obviously, as a baseball coach, getting to come back to your alma mater is the dream, right? Like that's what everybody wants to get to do. It's Aggieland is special, right? It's a unique place, and as a student athlete, getting to experience it and go through it and love it so much, to get back to Aggieland to coach and get to kind of do the same thing that the coaches for me did for me, to do it for the players here is awesome.
Absolutely. I'm curious, when you walk onto Olsen Field today, what memories, kind of hit you? What starts to come back? Because I'm sure you've got to have some, memories from your time back in the day, right?
Yeah, actually, the first one that I did when I first came back, after my last game at Olsen, I went up and sat in 203, up the top of 203, probably 3 or 4 rows from the top, and just kind of like stared at the field for, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, and just kind of sat there and thought about it. Obviously I was getting the chance to go play professionally, so like that was awesome, but just didn't want to take it for granted. And so when I came back, as a coach, that was the first thing I did, is I looked right up to that section where I had sat and was like, well, it's weird to be back on here looking at it. But there's also a few others. I think that my freshman year I played third, and I remember the stadium was a little bit different then, but catching a foul ball, and it was either the first or second inning, catching a foul ball like right over by the stands for the third out of an inning, and like the crowd just going nuts. I think they had a runner in scoring position or something, and it ended the inning and everybody went crazy. And I just remember like taking the short, like 3 or 4 steps into the dugout and being like, this is the loudest place I've ever heard. Obviously I played in some louder ones after that, but it was pretty awesome. And I still those are probably the two that come to mind the most.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that crowd and just the atmosphere, of the support of the 12th man and how everyone just, fans here at Texas A&M, they rally around our sports teams big time. And like you said, you went on to play, had an awesome MLB career, but how did the environment, compare? I mean, you've played at other stadiums, you've coached at other stadiums, but how does Texas A&M, Blue Ball Park, Olsen Field, how does that environment compare?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. One of the things going into professional baseball that playing in an atmosphere like this prepares you for is, they have a joke or saying that, players struggle once there's a third deck, right? Like, so in the minor leagues, there's usually 1 or 2 decks, and all of a sudden there's a third deck, and guys don't perform the same way and things like that. And I just feel like as a young athlete, 19, 20, 21 years old, playing in this atmosphere with these fans, and how just you learn to like thrive on it and use it as a positive and something that makes you better versus something that scares you or worries you. So I think that once I got into pro baseball and then started having those same feelings, it was like, oh, this is awesome. Not, oh, this is a burden, or this is this is something that's hard. It's like, no, this is why you play.
Yeah. Like you were already used to that level.
Oh, for sure.
Adrenaline rush. Okay. I want to know the story of how you specifically got to Texas A&M as a student athlete, because I think I read online you grew up coming to baseball camps here, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners that story?
Yeah. So I mean, that's pretty much it. Is I was a camper, right? Like I came to probably 7, 8 camps, I guess, ranging from, I don't know when the first one I came to, let's say somewhere around 9 or 10 years old. And then pretty much every summer, it was at some point I was going to try and get up here. My dad was going to bring me and, just kind of get an opportunity to. I think when we first started coming, we were just trying to get good coaching, right, and get better and learn to play the game. And then the more I fell in love with the place and we fell in love with it, it was, then it started to become, their ulterior motive to try and impress Coach Johnson and Coach Lawler and Coach Coleman and Hutch. And so obviously, that was the goal at the last couple times I came to camp. But at the beginning, it was just coming to learn baseball, and it's cool. So when we tell guys who come to camp, like, hey, this is part of it, and you really can make an impression by, showing up and getting to know us and us getting comfortable with you, like, it really does matter.
Yeah. Do you have many Aggies in your family? Was your dad an Aggie or?
No. So actually, my stepmom was the only Aggie that I had in my life growing up. So parents didn't go to college, but then, my dad gets remarried. My stepmom, she's an Aggie. So she started with the introduction to it. I remember her introduced me to the war hymn and just telling me about like fish camp and all these things. And I was 10, 11 years old and being like, I have no idea what this means. But then obviously once getting here and getting exposed to it, I was like, I was appreciative of the fact that I wasn't starting from scratch.
That's super neat. So would you say Texas A&M was always kind of the goal for you, like this school specifically, or were you just open to any opportunities, you could get to go continue your college baseball career?
I mean, honestly, I was as an athlete, I was a super late bloomer. I have a 16-year-old son and a 12-year-old son that are relatively small for their age, right, and getting stronger, but they're having to do the same things that I did, right? And so when I got to high school, I still have the program that I keep in my office just to remind myself for when we're recruiting and going after players. But I was 5'1", 109 pounds as a high school freshman, right? And so, the way we recruit now and the way we go after players, a guy that's that small is not on our radar, right? Like that's just a reality of the business. And so to say that, I thought I was going to play at Texas A&M when I was the kid at high school that you're walking down the hallways and you're like, how is that kid allowed in school? Like, who let the sixth grader in here, So, yeah, it was obviously a dream and something that I'd look forward to, and a goal, but it definitely wasn't something that I was like, I'm going to do this or whatever. I was just hoping to get to make my high school team at that point. And then obviously at the end of high school, the recruiting was a little later back then. And I started getting phone calls. That's when it became like, hey, everybody's calling. This is cool. As soon as A&M calls, it's over. And that's how it happened.
Wow, I love that. And I mean, even what you said about the late bloomer, I mean, me and athletics also in high school, I was the same way. What would be your advice to young athletes, who are maybe in in similar shoes that you were, who they have the skill, they know they have the talent, but maybe size-wise are just not there yet? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is at some level, it all does even out, right? And typically if I'm talking to young kids or around friends of my kids, the kids that are already more physical and big, it's like, hey, you can't stop working because those guys are coming, right? And then the opposite message is to the ones that aren't. It's like, hey, you compete and you're keeping up and you're competitive and maybe you're not the best right now, but you're good enough to play or to have an impact. Just wait till you catch up. And so I think the message goes both ways because I've seen it. I've seen the little guy get big and make it. And I've seen the big guy not work and not make it. And I've seen the big guy work and keep going and become amazing. And seen the little guy give up because he didn't have success early. And so the reality is we all have to keep going. Like we all have different things. It's no different than our players on our team. Like there's different attributes that they have that help make them successful right now, but there's ones that they need to get better at in order to keep being successful. And so same message. Yeah. If you're big already, don't stop because somebody's coming. And if you're little, don't quit fighting because you can catch up.
Yeah. Never quit. Keep pushing forward. You left quite a legacy within the Aggie baseball program, earning all Big 12 honors 3 seasons in a row. You were named an All-American in 2005 and were inducted into the 2016 Texas A&M Letterman's Association Hall of Fame. When you think back on, those years and then those accolades, what are you most proud of? And who were some of the teammates and the influential coaches that really helped you make an impact within the Aggie baseball program?
Well, I mean, the number one is Mark Johnson. I mean, Coach Johnson is the man still to this day. He is the reason that I'm coaching. When I left here, like I talked to him, I was like, Coach, the goal is to play as long as I can and come back and try and be you. Right. Like that's, I mean, just the impact he had on me on the field, off the field. Like there's no, I don't know. He's on the Mount Rushmore for me of men in my life. Let's just say that. But the kind of the crazy thing is you think back, like I honestly getting inducted to the Hall of Fame is probably the only one of those things that really you mentioned in terms of accolades that was kind of something. And maybe it was because I was older, but that was pretty special, right? Like somewhere that you care about, that you love, and then getting a recognition that is like pretty prestigious was like, okay, this is awesome. I mean, I definitely, am thankful for that and like didn't take that for granted. The all conference players and all American, to be honest, most of the time when I think about the team and what we did, I think about, hosting a regional as a freshman and my sophomore year, like going into Baton Rouge and playing in a super regional in Baton Rouge. You think about those things, kind of what we did versus anything
those moments.
There's moments and accomplishments that we had that I think those are the things when somebody says, hey, what about 2004? Like that's what comes to mind. I honestly didn't even know I was all conference player for 3 years. When you said that, I knew I had done it at least a couple times, but I didn't know that, so it's just not what comes to mind. Like, and we try and tell our players that. And for the most part, I think the guys get it. Like they're going to remember each other and what each other do way more than they're going to remember some award that gets announced a week after the season ends.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's such a critical, important mindset to have, right? Remember that it's a team's progress. And yes, it's good to have like goals to earn, season accolades and things like that. But overall, it's the team, it's the program, it's the goal that you're chasing together. I'm curious, did you ever experience any like adversity or setback during your college years as an athlete?
Yeah. So my junior year, I had a shoulder injury. I still two-wayed when I was here. I pitched a little bit. I kind of came here with pitching probably being maybe even slightly ahead of myself as an offensive player. And then I walked into a team that my freshman year, I think we had 9 players drafted that year. Like there wasn't innings to be had for a freshman arm. That a couple of guys did that were POs that were better than me at pitching only, but there just wasn't a lot of innings. And so the offensive side kind of was more important that year. And then once I had a good year, that just kind of took precedent. And then I didn't pitch a lot, but I still did pitch a little bit. And we had a game in Oklahoma. It was like second week of conference or whatever. And I came into like in 10th inning of a game that was like in the 30s. Threw an inning after playing short, went back to short. And then the next morning woke up and was like, my shoulder is killing me. Coach Johnson was awesome, brought me in and was like, hey, like, you got a chance to play for a long time after this. Like, that's the last pitch you'll ever throw for us. Just get healthy and play infield for us. So I ended up having to DH for a few weeks and then came back and played second for a few weeks because couldn't quite make the throw from short. And then I was able to get back to shortstop by the end. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, that was in the middle of that year, which we were supposed to be really good. We started out really good. And then, wasn't the year that we all wanted. To be hurt and not be able to do everything I could to help the team and play was definitely not fun.
Yeah. I mean, I know so shortstop was like, that was kind of your main, your position. And I love watching shortstops. I think it's just so fun. And I mean, I'm always just so impressed by the athleticism of shortstops. But what would you say kind of clicked for you when you were coming up in your baseball journey and when you began to perfect, and kind of get really good at that position?
I think probably the thing I had to learn or to harness, my best attribute, I guess, as an infielder was I could really throw, right? I had a strong arm. That was also my biggest issue, right? So, I mean, I joke with the guys here. I mean, you can go back and look at the stats. I think it's on the website. I want to say I made over 20 errors as a freshman and as a sophomore, right? And I mean, the way we do things now, like our players would be crucified if they made 20 errors in a season. And I hope they don't, right? Because my job is to help them get better, right? So, but most of those were on the throwing side, right? Like go for big plays, not afraid to, go in the hole and maybe throw a ball that the guy's going to be safe, but I'm going to try. And we do that with our infielders. Like I talk to them like we're this is a race of 27 outs. Like, we are not playing scared. Like, if you go for it and the guy's safe and something happens, like, if you don't throw it, the guy's safe. And if the guy's safe and he's on first base, like, that's bad for the Aggies. So go for it. And so there might be some times where we go for a play that, is a little bit of a stretch and maybe something bad happens because of it. But at the same time, like, I don't want these guys playing scared. I want them playing, going for it. And so I do think that there's a harnessing of that. Once I got into professional baseball, obviously I saw a little bit of it my junior year, but got into professional baseball and matured a little, the heartbeat slowed down a little bit, and then started to be able to harness the throwing a little bit. And then that's
the power.
Then that's when I guess the ability to really play shortstop at that level maybe came to fruition.
You talked about the guys and the players you're mentoring right now. I'm really curious to get your perspective on this. Can you just walk through how the Aggie baseball student athlete experience compares to the student athlete experience of your day? Like, what is really different? Obviously, I mean, the landscape of college athletics today is extremely different.
Yes.
But what is different? And then also, what do you think has maybe remained the same?
Well, I guess I'll start with the same. Is the same part is like it takes what it takes, right? Like, it takes work, it takes effort, it takes the resources or what's changed, right? Like, the simple ones are like nutrition. I mean, the way that these players are fed, the way the supplements that we have for them, the access to the weight room. I mean, we were coming over to this side having to work out in the football weight room when I was here, and things like working around the other programs when they were lifting and having to, you gotta lift at 6 a.m. because football has it or track has it or basketball or whatever, like all those things. And just now being able to have that all in-house, allow the players to get sleep, because that's part of recovery, right? And not have to lift early. That's a major deal. The technology, the way we're supported, we're with TrackMan and just all the things that it takes to properly evaluate and to teach that we have now is just so much better. Like, the game has just moved on. And that's the best thing about being at this level and being in the SEC is, like, the things that I'm used to and the things that you need to do that, we have access to, right? I think even Hawkeye's on its way. Like, supposedly that's coming soon. And it's like, that's the next thing that you need in order to get all the information you need to give these players. The players are smarter now and know more. Some of this is good and some of this is bad than they've ever known before, right? They don't come in, when I got here, for the most part, other than my dad, Coach Coleman was my first ever hitting coach. Like, I had never had one. And he starts teaching me stuff and I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. Right now our players come in and they've had 7 of them, wow. Right? And they have an idea of what they do. And there's a lot of good to that. And then there's a lot of also having to teach and unteach and reteach maybe that comes with it too. So it's just a little different. Mm-hmm. But the number one thing is the reality is competitiveness and hard work and getting after it. Like, it takes what it takes. Like, that hasn't changed. We can help them a lot more than maybe they could back then.
Yeah.
But really, it's still the same game played the same way. So a lot of it's still the same.
Baseball is you've got to be mentally tough, right? So I feel like it's such a mind game too. How do you keep your players, focused, and what do you tell them to stay, remain unrattled and focused throughout the game? Like, what are your biggest pieces of advice that you give them?
That is our game, right? Baseball is played 100% between the ears. Like, it is. I mean, Coach really did it first day. Like, first day of practice, we walk out there and he walks them through. Like, they didn't even hit the first day. Like, first day was, here's how we do things with what we're going to do in the cage. And then he walked them to the field and it was like, taught them a reset and how to get in and out of the box and what we're going to do between pitches. It's like, you have to win that time. And that's the part that a lot of people don't know, right? Like, we want to work on swing and we want to work on those things. And all those things are obviously vitally important. But how quickly a pitcher or hitter can move on from the previous pitch, whether it was good or bad, whether they can learn from what happened on that pitch. Hey, I got information, right? That's the one thing that I will say is a little bit different in college than pro. in college, we are helping with those decisions more, right? They're not being required to read a hitter's swing and then decide what the next best pitch is, like JK is doing that, right? But having conviction and knowing, JK knowing his pitcher well enough to know, hey, this guy can execute this when I call it. And the pitcher, when he does call that pitch, the guy's like, the player's already thought of it and been like, yeah, that's what I was thinking too, right? And then all of a sudden that pitch becomes even better than it was before because they're working in sync, right? And then offensively, understanding how we beat a pitcher and, when's a good time to be aggressive and when's a good time to make a guy get the ball over the plate and what type of approach or swing are we trying to win on that day or against this guy. And so those are all things that you have to do that the good teams are going to do, that you'll be able to beat some people when the talent is even based on what you do, how you handle the game, and then how you prepare mentally for it in terms of a strategy.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back really quick and ask you a few more questions about your time in the big league. So, after your final season in 2005, you were drafted first round by the Oakland A's. Take us back to that draft day. Do you have any memories of that moment and what that meant to you?
Yeah, I was sitting in my house in Corpus Christi, Texas. The draft was way different back then. I've tried to explain it. I need to go back and find a video. I'm sure people have it. The picks were 5 seconds apart. It maybe even less than that. It was. I was the 21st pick, and I think the draft started, and I was taken a minute and 30 into the draft. They picked and they picked and they picked, and I remember sitting there being like, did they all talk to each other before and figure out who was going to take? And it was just so fast. And maybe I'll look back at the video and it won't be as fast as I remember because I've never actually done it. But yeah, it was just a different setup. There was a lot of calls and stuff with it. Advisor, I guess, right? He wasn't my agent yet till that day. So advisor, being like, hey, this is the teams that like you, here's whatever, and kind of negotiating a little bit, but it's way, way more in depth now than it used to be. But yeah, going back, it was in Corpus Christi, Texas, sitting in my living room, and then you stared at a computer and the names just popped up, and my name popped up, and I got a call about 5 seconds after that and found out it was an Oakland A.
You're on to continue that baseball career. Yeah. I mean, you spent more than a decade with Oakland and Toronto. What was the biggest adjustment you think you made from college ball to the MLB?
I think the biggest one was, like we talked about earlier, was being able to harness the throwing, right? Being able to, I think I could defend at the next level with the glove, but being able to harness the throwing and play shortstop in the big leagues. I mean, those guys are pretty good, right? They in 160 games, they're messing up 10 times. And so to go from 20 errors in 50 games here to get to that level, I had to be able to control the baseball a little bit better. So that was probably the number one. And then offensively, the adjustment to the wood bat, the adjustment, sinkers and cutters in college were, people threw them, but with a metal bat, you get jammed and it still goes 100 miles an hour. It's you go to a wood bat and all of a sudden your bat's broke and you're like, wait, that used to be a hit. So it's learning how to hit the ball within a 2 to 3 inch radius on the bat versus the whole thing being good. So that's what I give the guys we have now on our team that are so strong, like a Grohovac or Sorrell or something. And it's dude, you just get through that baseball, because with that metal bat in your hand, you're strong enough to still hit it over the fence and you don't even hit it good.
That's so, yeah, I mean, that's obviously such a big adjustment. Yeah, I've never even really thought about that. But man, yeah, that wooden bat. Coach, you even made a little baseball history as the first position player to pitch in a playoff game in the MLB. How did that unfold? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so obviously playing the Rangers, we probably have some Rangers fans being back in Texas. So we're playing them. I believe it's game 4, so we're up a game in the series. We got 1 game left to win, and they're kicking our butts, right? We're out of it in the playoffs. The pitching, I guess, the roster size, especially at that time, I think they've added one since, but your bullpen is so important, right? And we were a team that relied on our bullpen. Our bullpen had to be good, and we were pretty depleted down there. Those guys had thrown a lot in that series. I think Mark Lowe was the only guy left, and he had already thrown twice in the series. And I tried to convince Gibby to let me start the 9th, and he wasn't having it. He wanted Lowe to throw, even though we were going to need Lowe the next day to try and beat the Rangers. He still wanted him to throw, so he runs out there and proceeds to start having a little bit of a rough inning. And all of a sudden, he looks down at me and he's like, "Hey, go get loose." So I'm not even sure it was on his radar. I was just like sitting there watching it and being like, "Hey, I want to win this division series, and we need that guy. And if he throws 40 pitches today, that means we don't have him. So if there's any way to keep him from doing that," unfortunately, he still threw a little bit, but fortunately, we were able to win the next game and move on. So it worked out. It worked out.
That honestly reminds me of the storied 12th man tradition, like the next guy stepping up, coming on to take place and support the team. That's awesome. Now, you get through your MLB career. At what point did you decide coaching was the next step for you?
So I already knew that this is what I wanted to do, right? The funny thing is, and so I get designated in 2018 by the Reds. I call my wife, obviously, first, talk to her, and I'm like, "Hey, getting sent down, whatever." Like at this point, I mean, it's been a long run. Like I hadn't, in my wildest dreams, that I think I'd play parts of 11 years in the big leagues. So I was at that point was like, I'm not going to sit here and try and if I get an opportunity to be back in the big leagues relatively quickly, that's fine. Or right away. But it wasn't like I'm just going to go sit and go back to AAA and ride around the buses and do all the things to get back up, right? I was good. And so I called my dad, right, and mom. And then right after them, the next phone call was to Coach Childress, right? Called Coach Childress. I didn't play for Coach Childress, but I'd gotten to know him a little bit over the years, and he was always awesome. And called him and was like, "Hey, Coach, just letting you know I got designated. Probably be my last year. I'm going to see how it goes over the next few weeks, month, but would love to join you guys in September and try and help coach." And the crazy thing is he pretty much said no. And I was like, "Oh, wait, I just thought this was a foregone conclusion. You knew that
wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. And so he was like, no, he was just protecting his program, right? And this is stuff that I didn't even realize at the time, right? And now, Coach Children and I can joke about this because, I love him and he's been amazing to me and helped me in so many ways. But it was just funny because at the time, he pretty much kind of told me no. And so I ended up going to AAA. I was able to talk the Rangers into bringing me to AAA in Round Rock. So I went and played for Round Rock just so that I could be close to home. Get back closer to my family. We were living in Houston. So go back to the Rangers. I'm in AAA and they were open about it. They were like, "Hey, if some team calls and wants you in the big leagues, we'll let you go." So did that and played there. And so then that fall, instead of coming back and coaching here, I had a few classes to finish up. I came and I sat in Coach Childress and Coach Seeley's office probably 3 days a week and just "Hey, what are y'all doing? What's, Seeley helped me with recruiting. What's practice look like? What do y'all, and whatever." And I got to know those guys really well over that semester, but still couldn't coach because it already had to be in. I had to be a student in order to be on the field and all that stuff. And so I went and played again in 2019 with the Yankees and played in AAA and whatever, made some money and then came and joined Coach Childress' staff at the end of that season. Because at that point, we knew each other well enough, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, come on, you can help. This would be awesome." But yeah, I tried to come in 2018 and got told no. But it all worked out, and we can joke about that now.
Wow. And I'm sure you were just yes, finally, when that moment and the opportunity, when that door was open, it was super rewarding. What was it like, coaching that first season here?
It was weird. It was weird. Having just been a player, I was on the field in July of that year, and then in September I was coaching, right? And so then it's, I was taking ground balls with them. I knew that this is what I wanted to do, but there was some times where a player would hit a ball and not great or whatever, and I'd want to grab the bat and be like, "Here, just do this," right? Here, I'll just show you. And then there was also a lot of learning, right? As a player, you're your own coach. You know yourself really well. And at first, when I first started doing it, it was I thought, not that I thought, I was coaching to what I needed, right? I was coaching the players and being "Hey, this is what I struggled with. Here's what I did." and just expecting that to be okay and that to work. And then quickly realize like I can draw from the experiences I've had and what I've learned from coaching myself. But the reality is all these guys are different, and what my words mean to me or to mean to one player means something completely different to another player. And so that was the biggest learning curve, and it was awesome, and had some great coaches that helped me with that. Coach Guy was here as a hitting coach, and just picking his brain on like what he says, and he was completely different than anything I've ever had. I mean, he's Louisiana Cajun, like getting after it, and I'm like, oh man, it was awesome. And just seeing like, hey, like, so his style's like this and that works, and like, wow, that's completely different than me. So just learning how to teach the player where they're at versus just telling them what had worked for me, because they're two completely different things.
And then from that brief stint in Aggieland, you went on to DBU and helped build such a powerhouse program at DBU. What are kind of the high level takeaways from your time at DBU?
Yeah.
And how do you think what did you learn as a coach there that even elevated your approach and how you mentor players today?
Oh, that would be we might be here all day if that's what we're going to try to explain. But a couple of things. One of the things that I had done when I was done playing was started asking around to like professional level coaches, because I thought that would be the best resources. And I may or may not have been right or wrong on that, but at the time I thought I was, and asking them who the best coaches in college baseball were. And you expect to hear, oh, this guy at Mississippi State and this guy at LSU and this guy at Arkansas. And it was pretty universal that most of the best player development guys that they thought it wasn't always those schools. And Dan Hefner's name came up a ton. So I was sitting in the office here as a student coach, helping coach that 2019 team, and shot him an email and was like, hey, love to pick your brain, heard a lot of great things. And so I went and met with him, and we talked hitting for like 5 hours. It was great. And so then when a couple of years later, fast forward after COVID and all that, and get a chance to go into coaching, he has a full staff at the time, so there wasn't really something to do. But then one of his coaches took the job at LSU, and he called and asked if I'd come be on staff. And so obviously that was huge for me. There was, geographical reasons, like wanting to stay in the state of Texas. Like if the ultimate goal is to coach at Texas A&M, recruiting in the state of Texas is huge, right? So had some opportunities to leave the state, which were cool, but to get to stay and be like, hey, I know this state, I know the players in the state, I know the coaches in the state, that was going to be big. And then obviously getting to learn from a guy who was considered one of the better player development coaches in the country. And so, learned a lot. It's a little different than it is here. Not in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. It's still baseball, but there's a little bit more emphasis on the player development side there, which is good and bad. I think we're doing more of that. I think Early's, even this year especially, like he's taken that way more on, and it's been awesome to see. But you have to do it more at the mid-major level, right? You're getting players who aren't quite as polished or as strong yet or whatever. And so in order to survive, you have to do it. And so it was cool to go to that level first and be like, hey, we have to survive on this. Like we have to get our players better. And then to take some of those lessons and that line of thinking and bring it to the SEC and be like, hey, like we're going to do the same style here. Like just because you guys have been famous for a long time and are considered the best players in the country, it's like you're not done getting better. Like we're gonna push the envelope, and we're gonna work, and the guys have been awesome. So it's been great.
That's awesome to hear. Speaking of Early, when you got the call, when you got the opportunity to join his staff and be a part of this program once again, how did that feel?
It was awesome. I mean, it was incredible. The industry, I know the industry better than I, did 5 years ago, right? And understand like there's challenges to this, and there's things about, hey, you got to do well and you got to win. And so that's all part of it. And so obviously this was the ultimate goal, but I also didn't know if it was going to be. And I got, as much as I love Aggieland, like I got a wife and 3 kids that are a part of this as well, right? And at some level, they're going to be first place, right?
Yep.
The wanting to be an Aggie is going to be second. And so had to talk with them about it and moving my kids down here. And that was a challenge, and that wasn't something that was easy. And then also just talking to Early, and the cool thing is he came and it was almost the same recruiting message that we would give a player. He came and was like open and honest about, hey, this is things that I did well last year, things that I didn't do well last year, things that I've learned. I know what it's going to take, and I know what I have to be better at, and some things that you can help me with that need to be off my plate so that I can be better at the things I need to be better at. And so I'm sitting there and, being like, okay, like not only is this the place I want to be, but like this is the guy I want to do it with, right? And it's been that, right? He's been incredible, and I'm super fired up about the team and where we're at. And obviously we still have work to do, right? Like if there's a day left before the season, like we're going to get after it, and even in season we will. But yeah, to just hear his heart and hear where he was at, and him to be just as kind of as open and honest as he was, like it was like, okay, like this is going to be awesome, and we're going to do this.
How does it feel now for you to help mentor Aggie baseball student athletes who are walking that exact same path that you did?
Yeah, I mean that was the goal, right? To be Coach Johnson.
And also follow up, what can you tell us about the team this year? And I'm sure many baseball fans listening to this episode. What are your overall thoughts, and how has it been so far getting to develop this new team?
Yeah, it's good. The team is super talented, right? We got some returning players that have performed at a super high level. There was some injuries last year and some things, right, that are hard, but the talent's there, right? Like we got a couple of horses on the mound that are going to be thrown on the weekend that are as good as anybody in the country. Our lineup, the first 4 hitters in our lineup, I'd take over any 4 hitters in the country, right? And then you look at it and you're like, oh wait, like the 5 through 13 are, have a chance to be an all-conference player too, right? So you look at it and it's like the talent is there. The work that they've put in is there. They've done it. They're hungry. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. They're listening, right? They're buying in. Early has been on them, right? Like attention to details, doing the common things uncommonly well has been his phrase all fall, right? They're not letting any detail go by. And if it does, they're correcting it, right? And that's been fun to watch. And so, baseball is a tough game. Like it's not the most talented team that wins every day. It's the team that plays the best, right? So there's games where you can hit 10 balls 100 miles an hour and the other team hit 2, and their 2 happen to come with the bases loaded and you lose, right? So it's a game that is hard to just go off results. You have to go off the process, right? You have to go, did we do the things that we expect to do to win? And if we do those, then we have to be okay with the result, right? And so just implementing those things and just holding that line of what matters and what we think is important, and then having the players be able to execute it. And they are. And so that's what's been fun. Now we got to get put to the test. We got a couple tastes of it this fall, right? Playing Sam Houston and TCU. You saw it a little bit against TCU where, I think TCU actually out-hit us in terms of hits in the game, but offensively we were much better, right? And it's like it wasn't about just the hits. It was about the offense, and it led to runs. And it's like, okay, like if you have days where you don't get a bunch of hits, but you get 13 walks to their 2, and you wear down their pitching staff like we did, like you still have a chance to win. Like we're going to have the days where we get 13 hits, but if we can win on the days where we get 6 because of doing other things, now we have a chance for this offense to be able to show up every single day. And that's what you need, right? Because you don't know. On a given day, you might need 3 runs to win, or you might need 13 runs to win, and you don't know when that game starts. So it's about doing the things that you believe give you the best chance to win and holding that line. And then at the end of the day, you look up and be like, all right, did we do it or did we not? And if they do, which they have been, we'll be good.
I like what you said there earlier in that response. You said, obviously our talent is through the roof, and then the work ethic is there, and then you think this team has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I'm no expert, but I just have to say, I think when you've got a little chip on your shoulder and the talent, obviously, that's a recipe for success. So
that's right.
I know many fans, Aggie baseball fans, and the 12th man are just super excited to get out and support y'all and rally behind this team this season. A couple more questions, and I promise we'll wrap up. This has been a great conversation, but going back kind of to just the resources and the facilities and the support that the 12th man provides for Texas A&M athletics in general, the, you know, many, and obviously some of our listeners, they're 12th Man Foundation donors, season ticket holders who buy tickets to come support y'all throughout the season. They want not only this team just to succeed for the program and for Texas A&M, but also they give back because they want these student athletes to have the best student athlete experience, the facilities, the nutrition, like you talked about earlier, the mental health services, the sports medicine, all these things. It goes into the whole holistic experience. What would you say to those individuals who are invested in the program and who give back to better these kids and want them to succeed not only as a competitor, but in the classroom and then in careers and life beyond?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you say is thank you, right? We can't do it without you. The player development center that is breaking ground here in a few weeks is going to be a game changer for us, right? We, in recruiting right now, as nice as Bluebell Park is and as nice as our stuff that we have is, like, we're mostly selling player development, we're selling the atmosphere, we're selling Aggieland, but like from a facility standpoint on that part, like we were behind some of the SEC schools, and you look at it and it's like what's being built, what's, about to break ground, the new cages, the pitching lab, the locker room and nutrition center that's about to go in, like that's going to put us at the front on that as well, right? And the reality is that is part of it, right? When you're recruiting players, it's hard to sometimes get a 16, 17-year-old kid to not just like the shiny thing, right? Like we all wish that they wouldn't. And, in our 30 and 40-year-old minds and older, right, we're like, oh, you should be more mature or whatever. It's like, well, put yourself back in a 16-year-old.
Right. We were all guilty of that at some point in our
100%.
lives. Yeah.
And you can't blame them. And that's been what's been so awesome about this fall is we have pictures of it and we have renderings, right? And it's like, I mean, every recruit that comes on campus is getting a 30-minute talk and shown the pictures and what's coming and how it's,
this is the future.
Yeah, this is what you're going to get, right? And then we're getting to show them pictures of the stadium too and being like, hey, this isn't that far down the line, right? Like this is the next step to making, this the best college baseball atmosphere in the country, right? And the cool thing for those kids is they're far enough out. Like the 2027 class that we just recruited, the player development center will be done before they show up. So like in recruiting, even though we don't have it yet, we're getting to use it and be like, it will be here before you show up, right? And so that matters. And so we can't do that without them, right? The funding, the money is a big part of this job, right? It just is part of it that sometimes we want to talk about and sometimes we don't want to talk about, but the reality is it is always there. And so I think the stadium itself with the bowl and the double decker and the atmosphere that's already created, like that part is so cool. But yeah, I mean, the answer is thank you. Can't do it without you. We can do all we want in recruiting in terms of the baseball talk, but the atmosphere of the fan base and then the facilities of the players and the way they're treated has to be at the top because the players know, like high school players know what's out there. And so you can't fool them with anything. Like you have to be able to show them that you have it.
And then really quickly, when reflecting on your personal experience, being a part of the Aggie Baseball program as a student athlete, how do you think your path, coach, might have looked different had you not had the scholarship opportunity to play baseball here at Texas A&M? Why are you grateful specifically for it?
Growing up, my family, we didn't have the money to afford this, right? Like without the scholarship to play here, like I couldn't come here, so that part is, it's a big part of it, right? Like ultimately, there's decisions in the recruiting process and with players that there's a financial component that matters, right? With an out-of-state kid, it's convince them that coming here is the best place for them, even though their family's going to have to travel to come see them and pay for flights and hotels. And then, and then for in-state kids, it's like, yeah, we're close, but there's ones that either can't afford it or driving's far, and there's a reason that most players play less than 200 miles from home, right? Like that's just kind of in recruiting, that's a lot, right? Like the brand of Texas A&M can stretch out across the nation. We know that, but at the same time, it's still most guys at every school, most players, student athletes come from a relatively close radius just because, I'm thinking about my son, like wherever he goes to play, like I wouldn't want to go watch, right? So if he goes to Maine, it's going to be tough, right?
Yeah.
So plus it'll be too cold. It's not going. But so that part's all kind of part of it.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, last question for you. What do you think the game of baseball has taught you about life that you carry with you every day?
I think probably the greatest thing about baseball is you just learn how to, maybe take a punch is the wrong way to say it, but you learn how to just handle the ups and downs of life, right? Like I tell my kids all the time, like my middle son especially will be like, hey, it's not fair or whatever. And I'm like, life's not going to be fair, right? Like that's not a phrase that we use.
Life is not fair. That's what I was taught as a young kid too. Yep.
Fair is like God does promise us fair. And so I think that in baseball, that's something that is just one of the biggest lessons you can learn. And you don't even have to play college baseball necessarily to learn it, right? I think that's why you played at the youth level and learning how, to do everything right and then still be out and be like, wait, like I did everything right. It's like, yeah. And sometimes you're going to apply for that job and you're going to be the right candidate and they're not going to take you. Or, you're going to, I don't know, you can come up with a million examples. But I do think that, being able to be resilient and calloused up and be able to handle the ups and downs of life and go through a hard time and get through it. And I just think that baseball is amazing at teaching those things.
That's good. And then one more question. Why are you proud, Coach, to be an Aggie?
I think the first part goes to the tradition, right? To the fan base that is unmatched anywhere, right? When we bring in a recruit, I tell them, hey, like this place is different. They're gonna love you forever. They're gonna support you. It's gonna be a part of who you are from the day you say yes for the rest of your life, right? It's not a 3-year, 4-year thing where you just come and you're gone and it's something that you did at one point. It'll always be something that's a part of you. And so that was what was so cool about getting back. But yeah, it's a special place. And I love the fact that like the students are involved in the stadium and in the atmosphere, right? Like you go to a football game and a baseball game and a basketball game, volleyball game, and it's like the student section is
they always
huge,
show up.
Yeah. And that part,
so fun.
When we have kids on campus, like I'm telling them like, hey, like you can go an hour down the street and have an atmosphere that's, got the same number of people, but it won't feel the same, right? It's a lot different when it's your peers that are yelling and screaming for you and just kind of getting after it. And so I think that that's part of it. That's just, you can't fake that, right? It's either you either got it or you don't, and we got it.
Coach Cliff Pennington on Answering the Call podcast. Coach, thank you again for the time today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Answering the Call. If you're enjoying the show, please rate and follow us on your podcast streaming platform of choice so you can be the first to know when a new episode drops. As always, a big thank you to our incredible podcast producer, Megan Rohde, to 12 Man Productions, and Texas A&M Athletics NIL Department. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to every donor and season ticket holder for always answering the call through loyal support of Texas A&M Athletics and our student athletes. We will be back soon with more content. Thanks, and gig 'em.